Welcome to the Art Coaching Club podcast. I'm your host, Haley Price, artist, owner of the online art gallery, The Scouted Studio, and business coach for artists. With experience starting and running my own art business, growing an online art gallery, and coaching artists internationally on how to grow their careers, I've learned the art world inside and out. I've made all of the mistakes so you don't have to. Every episode will be a little bit different, but I promise that each week I will show you how to tackle your biggest business challenges so you can get back in the studio doing what you love. Now let's get into it. Will you introduce yourself and share a little bit about your journey to becoming a holistic time coach, what that means, and kind of what you do?
Yeah, it's a big question, but my journey, time is intergenerational. So I love to just start with like my dad was an entrepreneur, my mom's dad was an entrepreneur, my dad's parents were immigrants from Europe, and so very much grew up with like this hustle, we've got to survive, survival energy. And I took that into my job, my career as an engineer, and had a whole burnout experience. Was like, I don't think I want to be in oil and gas. That's not aligned with me and my values.
Yeah.
And I like just had a whole like, I need to figure out another way of living, being with myself. I was always like go, 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 typical like type A human, Virgo, just like always on and could never sit down and chill and rest. And yeah, so I became a yoga teacher, got like super into yoga and Reiki. My first business was doing yoga retreats and private yoga instruction. One of the most common things that I heard from my clients, we all experience time scarcity to some degree. My clients constantly were like, it's so hard to stop my brain from thinking about all the things I have to do and never enough time, and I don't know how to like manage my time. I'm bad at time. Just all of these messages that they were telling me about themselves. And yeah, that eventually, tumbled into holistic time coaching that I came up with about 5-ish years ago, and I've made it my full-time gig now.
Yeah. Well, can you tell us a little bit about what holistic time coaching even means for people like me that are like, how can you help me? What does that mean? How is it
Yeah.
different than, the traditional advice of like, just go fix your calendar, things like that?
Right. And that's very mental, surface level solutions that don't work for most of us, right? It doesn't work if you are a parent or if you are a woman with a body. It doesn't work if you have anything other than just like a neurotypical, able-bodied, very privileged, rich person, kind of,
Right.
right? So, holistic time coaching is all about meeting you where you are, meeting your brain exactly how it is, however it operates best, your body, really just looking at your nervous system and your rhythms and what your body needs, your mind needs, even your environment. I think that's something that, just fix your calendar or do a Pomodoro session misses is like our environment around us. Time is everything, right? Time is our life, it's our day to day, and it's so surface level when people are like, oh, just do a Pomodoro session or just time block or track your time. It doesn't address any of the things that make us human. To be honest with you, time management was created by a fellow engineer in 1910 to help factory workers become more productive and make more money for the factory owners. And so it's very much built on exploitation and dehumanization. Like we want to get the humans away and turn everyone into machines, right?
Right.
Factory workers, get the most out of them. And so it very much is built on this like capitalist mindset that, for an artist, for a creative, for people who don't want to live in a machine-like robotic way, doesn't work.
Yeah, well, and I think that's something that so many artists reach out to me about is a lot of them are mothers or have families, or I just work with a lot of women. So love the men that are listening too, but it's mostly women. So I hear a lot about there's the motherhood aspect. And then there's also, how do I make the most of my time when I also like need to be creative and I can't force that to happen and I already have such little time blocks. And so I think it's such a real problem that a lot of the times these productivity hacks, which may be beneficial for some working a 9 to 5 or, in a very specific niche, don't work for the majority of us. So I think that's something that's really needed that you're focusing on.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, I've worked with lots of people that would fit in the mold that traditional hacks or like management concepts would work for. And they
Yeah.
still, like, we're still human. We want to enjoy our lives. We don't want to be so stressed out and feeling behind and, so frantic and anxious all of the time. We don't want that experience. Traditional time management is all about control. Like, it's an illusion of control. Like, I can
Yeah.
figure out all of these things and then my life won't feel bad or I'll get everything done and I'll feel safe. And that it really is just an illusion.
I think this is like something I should and have talked to my therapist about, but I'm going to give you an example from today. So I have been a little bit under the weather. Like I'm fine, but I was like, you know what? We're going to sleep in because you need to heal. You work for yourself. Like you should be able to do that. And I literally the whole time I was in bed was just going through like the to-do list, all the things I need to do. And I had this guilt for literally taking care of myself. And I want to kind of ask you, why do we feel like we're not doing enough or we're constantly running out of time, even if we are checking everything off our to-do list? Like the thing is, I'm going to close out today and I still did everything I needed to do, but I also, and even if I didn't do everything I needed to do, why do we think that is? Like, why is our culture like forcing us to feel like we have to do more when that's not necessarily what we truly want? I don't want to be working that much. Why do I make myself feel like I do?
Yeah, I think there's like kind of two fun alternative ways of looking at it. Like,
Yeah.
yes, there is culture, and that is all just tied to survival, right? Like, it's purely our brains just want us to survive better and feel safe. And that's great. Like, I actually don't make that a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
It's all about extending compassion to that part of us that just wants to be safe and survive. And so when you do it that way, that's a beautiful way to soothe that voice or that feeling. The other thing that I love to talk about, because I work holistically, I love bringing in the spirit. And especially as artists and as creatives, like we have such a strong desire. We have this mission, this passion for the things that we do. And that is also an input into the part of us that just wants to do all of these things. And I
Right.
think that that is so beautiful and fun that there's a part of us that just wants more and just wants to create more and just to help more people or whatever the thing is that you do that you want to do more of. That is sort of like what our body is fighting against, right? There's this internal tension between our body's pace, our body's ability to do the things, our mind's ability to do the things. Our capacity is a limitation that
Yeah.
we need to listen to and work with, but our spirit is limitless. And our spirit just wants to do so much. And I think that that's so beautiful that, yes, there's survival, there's capitalism, there's all these systems and culture that we live in, but the spirit part is also a juicier and more exciting thing to work with as well.
Yeah. Well, how do you start, like if I was going to work with you today, like how do you start to navigate those conversations? Like what does that look like? And I mean, you've already, I feel like, explained so much to me because I can, what you just said about the spirit versus like our literal physical capacities is really hitting home. But kind of walk me through what it would look like to talk to you and to work with you.
So the very first thing that I love to do with folks is what I've created and called a whole self, like sort of diagram or exercise, whatever. We have all of these parts. We have our mind, we have our body, we have our spirit, we have the environment around us. We have all of these parts that are all fighting for attention. They all have different needs, they all have different desires, they all show up in our lives differently. If you like internal family systems or time travel kind of stuff, we have our past self and our future self and our present self, all of these parts of us. We feel like they're in fight, they're in tension with one another, but when you zoom out and do this whole self exercise and we look at how each of these parts show up, we can then work with them. We don't have to fight with them. We don't have to shun some of them, especially like our inner critic. People love shunning the inner judgment voice. I love doing this whole self exercise to just like help someone start to navigate like looking at time and productivity through all of these different lenses and how each part of us shows up and how to respond to them, how to be in relationship with these different parts of us. Sometimes I love naming them. I have a client, it's like she's like famous in my brain. Her internal critical boss kind of part of her is called Bob. The moment that she starts realizing Bob's in control and driving the ship, and she doesn't really want Bob to drive the ship, right? Bob's only
Yeah.
helpful in certain circumstances and parts of the day. And so, yeah, the moment that Bob comes up, then it's a switch for her to be like, "Oh, I can just like soothe Bob, the Bob voice and
Yeah.
work with him instead of let him run the show and or pretend he's not running the show."
I love that. I mean, I think it's really interesting to think about all the different inputs and selves and things about how we think about. I mean, I don't know. I just find it so interesting to think about it in this sense. I can hear people coming at me and being like, well, what about me? Like, I have caregiving responsibilities. Like, I have children, I have ADHD, I have chronic illness, I have a full 9 to 5 job. Like, I know so many people with different time restraints, however we want to think about it. How do we need to think about time differently for people with different situations? How are you working with people and kind of meeting them where they are based on what their schedule looks like?
Yeah, definitely. And that's part of the environmental, right? Our external circumstances that we have less control over. Being honest is like the number one thing. Like we're not honest with ourselves. We're not honest with how much we can do. We're not honest with how much time things take. We're not honest with so many aspects that make us feel behind and make
Yeah.
us overambitious, right? And so with any external or out of your control constraints, it's about looking at them with compassion, with honesty, with grace, to be honest. Like it's looking at all of that. And that's part of the whole self exercise is like taking into account all of the things that make you who you are and how that impacts how much time you have. When it comes to, like tangibly, I'm an engineer, I'm a project manager. I love the tangibles as well.
Yeah.
It's like we all have quote unquote 24 hours because that's just how our society is set up, but we all have different access. It's simplistic to say that we all have the same 24 hours because we don't. And so what makes our 24 hours and how can we best spend that 24 hours in regards to our context and our capability and availability?
Yeah. I'm thinking about two different people, myself and then some people I work with. I feel like I'm in a place right now where I have so many exciting pursuits. It's not that I necessarily am impacted by things taking away my time. It's like I have a full calendar, but I only have 24 hours to do all of these things I want to do. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And then I also have some people that are scared to even pursue certain passions because they say, I just don't have the time. They're kind of like two sides of the same coin. I'd love to talk to you about just like this limiting idea of time and like how do we approach it, whether it be feeling like we just don't have time and we're not starting, or you're like me and you're like, have I backed myself into a hole because I've overcommitted because I have a million ideas and I'm running a million businesses, but I don't actually have the time. And then like I'm freaking out and like not happy.
Yeah, I think it comes back to, well, first, like, that's real. Again, we talked about the spirit, we talked about society, like all these different things that make us commit or not commit,
Mhm.
and to say yes or to say no. And, time scarcity, it's not just about having the right tools, it's often about like our minds, our bodies, our spirits, our environment, all these different aspects that make us who we are. And yeah, like, the thing that I love teaching is why self-prioritization. We have a body with a limited capacity. We have societal view of time and 24 hours. That's all made up. Like, yes, the sun and the moon are what makes us 24 hours, but like, what does 24 hours actually mean? Like, you can really like kind of just throw it away if it doesn't serve you. I threw away the months. Like, I only go by my menstrual cycle. So I start my month right when my period is over, and then I end my month right when it starts. I have 5 days or 6 days or whatever where I'm chilling or doing bare minimum. You can do that with your day, your week, your month. These societal constraints around what 24 hours or a week or a month or a year mean, it's all made up. All you have to follow is your body's clock. That's one way of looking at time scarcity that I love, is to play around with these containers of time. The prioritization thing, like we do have a body, we are limited, so we do have to prioritize, like honestly. we have to make a decision about what's most important for us, and that usually comes with grief. I love talking about prioritization and grief together because we don't want to say no or closing the door on something, especially if it's spirit led or like passionate for us. And there's like a real deeper desire to do something, and we can't because we're still human in a body. We have to grieve it. We have to let go and we have to let things die. And that's really, really tough because our society doesn't want us to say no. And it's hard. So there's emotional regulation that comes with prioritization. And yeah, the other camp of humans who struggle to get started and go after the thing that they really want to do, I would say, like, of course, not enough time is a real thing, but I'm always curious, like, what's really happening under the surface. We can use time as a reason to not do something. And also, we can go under that and be like, okay, what's really happening here? Is it really just time or is it something deeper? And if it's deeper, how can I approach and do whatever I need to do? And I think for your people, like if you're scared to start a business or go after whatever you want to do in your art and creative business or practice, usually it's a fear of visibility.
Yeah.
Usually it's a fear of follow through. Like I have like this whole concept around follow through wound that we could get into of we don't trust ourselves to do the things that we want to do. And yeah, there's millions of reasons why we're not doing something and we feel like we don't have the time for it. And it's about figuring out what that thing is and healing it or tending to it.
Yeah, can you speak more to that, the follow through wound and kind of what that entails?
Did any of that resonate with you though?
Yes, it's all resonating. I'm also really in my own head because I personally am in a stage right now where I'm fighting with, and like I really mean like fighting in my own brain. I like write in my journal every day and it's the same entry basically every day, which is slightly different things of I have so many ideas, there's so many things I'm excited about, but my version of success also involves some level of slowing down.
Yep.
Whenever I draft out my perfect day and things like that, it's like, oh, a slow morning and a walk and not feeling frantic. When have I ever had a slow morning? Never once in my life. I have my own business, but it's not that I'm unhappy. It's just that why am I not letting myself have a mixture of both and like having the slow paired with you can also be successful and like get these things done. And I don't know. So a lot of what you're saying is just getting me thinking through that push and pull of like wanting the best of both worlds and like really not letting myself have it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's hardly modeled. Like even on the internet, all these people are like, I have the best world, but I would say that 90% of people are still not doing that. So
Yeah,
like we're not modeled what it actually looks like. And the biggest thing that I that sort of gives me evidence of that is that these people are still posting all of the time or they're still
right.
on thinking about work all of the time. And so my brain's like, how are you living your life too? Like there's a whole life outside of business, there's a whole life outside of working, of productivity that we're all missing because we're so worried about not having enough time, wanting to get more done. And that's something that, I've been working on trying to heal and work on is like actually living, living
Yeah.
outside of work, having a life outside of work and doing.
Yeah. And I feel like it's happened on a small scale for me. Like I'm very good at shutting down like afternoon, evening. Like I don't really go back unless it's like an emergency, but like really what emergencies are there in the art world? Like none. I'm really good at cutting that off. And then I'm really good at cutting off weekends, which I feel like is a good start for me, even though you're like, what is time? In my mind, that is how I'm going to
Those are
explain
the
it.
containers.
Yes, the containers that we all understand as of right now. But I don't think I'm still don't think like during the day I'm letting myself actually I don't know like live. Like that sounds so crazy and it's because I think I really love my job, but it is like between I had a call and then I had your call and instead of like going and chilling for the 20 minutes between I'm like, okay, well, what can I do in 20 minutes? I can send these emails and I can do this and it's like breathe, like take a chill pill, Haley.
Yeah. And
So,
honestly, like, I just want to say that I think that, like, the way that you're talking about it, like, you have so much awareness, you have so much vulnerability and braveness because most people wouldn't actually admit to the things that you're saying. And, like, I think that is really awesome. Like we all struggle with this stuff in so many different ways. Like there's millions of ways to have a dysfunctional or unhealthy relationship with time, and there's so much shame around it that we then don't even want to look at it. It's like this invisible thing that's like running our lives is this like clock, this like
Yeah.
really mean linear clock.
Well, and it's hard. I've talked about this like in therapy before too. It's been a while, but I was saying it's hard because I'm rewarded. Like I'm rewarded for not taking the break until like, today when I wake up sick because I literally haven't, taken a break in so long. But then it's also like, okay, you say that, Haley, but you're also rewarded when you do take a break. Like you're rewarded in different ways. So it's just hard because I think the way like our society quantifies like reward is like, oh, your business is succeeding, like financially or through whatever like measures, versus it's harder to quantify the reward, so to speak, of like being with your family and your friends. Like obviously we can see
Yeah.
it and we can feel it, but it's not as outwardly quantifiable. So sometimes we discount it. Or I
Yeah.
keep saying
And
we. This might be a me problem.
no, it's a
Like,
we problem.
I
This
keep
is
saying we to
societal.
maybe make myself feel better.
That's one of the biggest things that have helped me heal my relationship and work on this stuff is like validating. And like I have this really fun, interesting practice that you might love is every single time I'm like really into pickleball right now, which is just kind of weird and whatever.
I love
But like whenever I go play pickleball or like hike or take a week off or whatever, I come back like as I'm away, I'm like things are like good things are happening in my business. And then whenever I'm like toiling away and think that I have all this stuff to do and whatever, like I've now trained my brain to be like, this is repelling success. So now I've like flipped it. And now whenever I rest
Yeah.
and experience joy, like that's when I'm like quote unquote more of like a magnet for good things. And when I'm toiling, nah, like I'm repelling stuff, and I think that has been like a fun way to play with like rewarding myself for taking time away,
Yeah, and
if
I
that's
think
helpful.
there's definitely truth to it too. I mean, obviously, I'm sure you feel that way, but I feel like I don't think I've thought about it that way, but I've definitely realized when I take time away or I'm rewarded with more creativity or more ideas or just like business, things are going and happening and like momentum is moving even because I'm taking care of myself and I mean, and most of the people listening, like they are the heartbeat of their business. We're,
Right.
solopreneurs or like have one assistant type thing. So like you really do have to take care of yourself to take care of the business.
Yeah, yeah. Do you want to circle back to the follow through wound?
Yes, I do want to come back to that.
Because I think I could tie it all in nicely, I'm sure. But like, so the follow through wound, and we can
Uh-huh.
even use it in regards to rest, but I like to do it with like anything. So let's say you want to make a post, right? You want to post on Instagram or wherever, and our brains ta it's called task magnification, right? Our brains build it up as like this huge thing. We have to do it perfectly. All of our tendencies all come up and make us get overwhelmed and freeze. And then we avoid the thing. We don't do it. We run away from it. We identify as I am bad at following through. And then that continues, that cycle just continues every single time we want to do something, meditate, work out, do art, pitch
Yeah.
a client, whatever. Then we make it huge and impossible to do, and then we avoid, we don't do it, we identify, and that feeds itself. So that's the follow through wound.
That makes sense. I guess what I would ask is, and you've talked about prioritization already, but how do I either not feel bad about not following through with something minor like a post versus what should I, follow through with that needs to be more followed through with? That didn't really make sense, but I think you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, and there's so many ways again, like it's really unique because it's about figuring out what is the I say self-protection strategy. So like
Yeah.
what are you doing to protect yourself from it making the task big and impossible? Like what's underneath that? So it's really getting into like the mental emotional aspects. But tangibly, yes, prioritization of course helps. I think what really, really helps the most is giving ourselves permission to not do it.
Yeah. I think
And
that's
then,
huge.
yeah, and then our brain's like, wait, but I actually want to do it. And then we start to attach the thing with like our true desire versus the internal voice telling us you have to do this thing because you said you would or you put it on your calendar or whatever. We want to rebel against that voice, but we actually want to listen to the spirit-led voice or like the deeper values oriented voice of like I'm posting because it helps my business and I care about my business and I care about the people and I care about my art and I care about all of these things. And when we attach our values to a task, we're much more likely to do it. But yeah, healing any of like the perfectionism or like any of the mental emotional stuff is one of the quickest ways to healing the follow through wound for sure.
Yeah, no, and I think I definitely relate to that. And I'm just imagining a lot of artists I know really well that are probably listening to this being like, yeah, I could see that. Because I think that's something we talk about a lot. It's in a totally different context, but like, what's the reason you're not doing the thing? A lot of the times, the reason we're not doing the thing is like some level of fear, or it's going to be hard, or it's not going to be received well, or a million other kind of fake things that we pick up and that we make up. And so this totally relates to that concept and just from a time perspective. So I think it's really, really interesting.
I always bring the follow through stuff back to parenting. So it's like
Uh-huh.
how we follow through with things is how we were parented. And so if you were parented as like this really author like if your parents were like authority figures and like mean or yelling or like that kind of stuff, then that's what we're gonna do to ourselves. And then if they were like kind of neglectful and they didn't really care, they weren't really interested in the things that you wanted to do and like they didn't really like motivate or push you in any way. That's what we usually do for ourselves or like maybe there was some weird mixture between the two. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like we all were parented in different ways and this stuff can brings up a lot of parenting things and my example that I always use is like parents trying to get their kids to eat broccoli. Posting on Instagram is like broccoli and like you just have to figure out what the cheese is. Like you have to figure out like how to get butter and cheese on the thing that you want to do and make it easier, simpler, more fun, more exciting, like whatever the thing is. But it's
Yeah.
really about deactivating that like internal authoritative like critical voice for sure.
Yeah. I really find that interesting. How can we talk about, or what I kind of want to talk about now is like over responsibility. So I mean, I don't even know where to begin with that, but like, how do we kind of break the cycle? Because I know for me, and again, I'm just going to keep talking about it in terms of myself because this is helpful for me, but also hopefully it speaks to other people. I feel like I go through this roller coaster where I'm doing so well, like taking care of my time. I feel good, I feel relaxed. Then I'm like, I'm not doing enough. And then I overbook my calendar. And then I get burnout. And then I kind of go back to, it's like this crazy cycle. And there's a lot more steps to it than that. But it's basically like, things are good. Then I kind of worry that things are too good. So I way overbook myself. And then that is terrible. And I burn out and then I do nothing again. And it's like this up and down cycle. I don't know. How do we kind of break that cycle or different versions of that cycle with just over responsibility, over committing our time and focusing on maybe being truly spirit led and being led by what actually is important and what we actually want to do versus maybe outside voices?
Yeah. The thing that I'm also a hypnotist. And so like I think what would be really fun and interesting is like going back in our young self and like see how we were raised and how that impacts that cycle. That's just like my brain because I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
like there's something there in our past self or and even in like a past life kind of thing that you could go and like help and heal. And I love time traveling in sessions. But yeah, like whenever there's a cycle, I'm always like, okay, what is the easiest point in this cycle to break or to stop or to like reroute, rewire, change? Different for everybody, but I'm curious for you, when you're thinking about this cycle, what part of it would sort of just stop the train from going in that same direction over and over?
I think it's the feeling of, and I'm sure this is just what's initially coming to my mind, but I think it's the when things are actually going well and things feel slower, feeling like I then have to dump a bunch into my calendar because I have the capacity for more because I have breathing room. I think it's instead realizing, no, you have breathing room. You should enjoy that versus feeling like I just, when I get an idea, I'm like, well, let's do it right now. And I pile a bunch of stuff on and then I get so overwhelmed that I kind of like break the calendar again and then go back to that low. So I feel like the easiest point for me to break is that overpile. Like when I go from the low to the super high, it's like breaking that right there. Like, okay, you can
Yep.
have a great idea, but you don't have to implement it tomorrow. Or you can have five great ideas, but again, you don't need to implement them all next month. Like, I think
Yep.
that's something I definitely am aware of that I'm doing. So I feel like it would be the easiest part to break. But it's coming from a place of excitement. It's like, well, this is such a great idea. I'm so excited about it. Like, let's do it right now. Why would I wait? And I think I'm getting better at it, but it's definitely something I need to work on.
Yeah, and that's actually not maybe not for you. I don't know you well enough for this, but like it's a symptom of the follow through wound, right? Like
Uh-huh.
there's a voice that's like, "Oh, I have to do this right now or I'll never get to it."
Yeah.
Right. So it comes from time scarcity. Like I'll never get to it, I'll never have enough time, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so that's something that is an interesting insight that you can maybe play around with. But yeah, like that point, I would say it's about making your nervous system comfortable with enough and contentment.
I've had this conversation before. But
We
yeah,
know this stuff, but how do we actually do it? And that's one of the ways that I love to work, especially with
yeah,
like hypnosis and stuff, these actual brain changing techniques. We know all of this logically. Like we're smart humans, we're emotionally intelligent, but like how do we actually integrate it into our bodies and into our being so we can be about it, not just say we know to do something.
right.
And yeah, I love being able to help people integrate it on a physical, like nervous system, body level.
And I think that's really important because I feel like what I run into, even though I know it's not true, is like the balance between rest, taking time for yourself in some way, and then like laziness. And I'm like, well, I don't, and those are all very different. And I think sometimes I'm like, am I taking time for myself? Am I taking too much time for myself? At what point does this go from like self-care to like, you're not doing enough? And I think that's where I know I'm hard on myself, and I'm sure other people can relate to this too, but it's like we need to come to terms with what is okay. And like it's okay to take care of yourself, which I sound crazy saying that.
No, I had someone in my certification 2 years ago said, wow, time is a worth issue. Like it's a self-worth issue. Being able to take time for you, spend it how you want, like that's you feeling worthy to do that. And so many of us don't feel worthy. And like that, of
Yeah.
course, like saying that it sounds silly, but really it comes down to like self-worth. You feel worthy when you're resting, you feel enough and happy and content. Like I used to, when I would take time off from doing things, even cleaning, even running errands, living my life, I like productivity is a drug. Like I literally had like it itches, like it hurts to slow
Yeah.
down. Like it feels so bad. And so really it for me it always came back to like, do I feel worthy to rest? Do I feel good enough to slow down? And that's like a much bigger, deeper thing that I love to explore.
Yeah, I think that's a really thoughtful way to put it. And again, it's funny because, and I'm being super honest with a lot of this stuff, but this is circling the drain of a lot of things I've covered in different ways in therapy. And it's just interesting because I think, surface level, I'm like, yeah, I'm worthy. Yeah, I can take a break. Like, I'm so chill. Like, everything's great. But then you really think about it and you're like, no, I know the internal conversations I'm having as I'm forcing myself to like sit on the couch and watch TV. And I know it is bad in my mind, even though it's like totally fine to like rest every once in a while. So it is really interesting. But I think the work you're doing is so impactful because it's just bringing these conversations to light that I think so many of us need to have.
Yeah, thank you. It's an invisible force, like I said, that's like running our life. Like this clock, this societal clock is running the show. And
Yeah.
we have the opportunity to be like, wait, like none of that makes sense and it makes me feel really bad. Like what can I do instead? And there's so many ways that we can feel freer and feel more alive and be able to really, really live a life where you're present, not just on this like autopilot go, go, go mode all the time.
Yeah. If you could give kind of like one piece of advice or like something we can do to kind of start to move towards this like not time bound, kind of like time free life, what would it be? I mean, I know that's a really big ask, but is there some little small step? Maybe you can like workshop it on me. totally selfishly, that like I could do today or this week. Maybe let's not think about weeks, but that I can do to just start, I don't know, thinking about time differently because it's something I definitely struggle with.
Yeah. Honestly, like we talked about so many things. Like my
I
brain's like,
know.
we just like went through a
A
lot.
lot, yes.
How does it feel when you spend your time how you want?
See, it's hard because I think in some ways it feels really good when I don't have that guilt telling me it's wrong. So if I can clear that out of my head and say, like, no, it's
It's
fine.
gone.
You're doing what you want. This isn't for a purpose, and that's okay. Like, it's not for some, productivity purpose. It's great. I'm so happy. I'm a better version of myself. I feel rested. I feel, all the things you're supposed to feel, but like rejuvenated. And I feel like I'm better. Like, I'm the better version of Haley. But I think it's hard to get to that point. I really grapple with the guilt of I should be doing something else. And I personally think it comes back to the worth thing. Like, oh, I'll be like worthy of taking that break when I hit some milestone or I achieve this thing or I do whatever or don't do whatever. And so I don't know. I don't even know if that answered your question, but that's just kind of where my brain is going right now.
Yeah. And you did. You started to like get into this resource state of like I'm better, like I'm the better version of me and like more all of the beautiful things that you said, there's still just like a voice that doesn't trust it. And
Yeah.
so I think maybe that's the piece of advice that I can share and like leave everybody with is like you can trust the voice. Like you can trust the part of you that will feel better and that will be the better version of you and the more alive, better artist and more creative and more excited and more full.
This has been so great. I could talk to you for so long, but can you share how people can learn more about you, work with you, learn more about kind of like what you do?
Yeah, for sure. So my website is called The Holistic Time Coach. I work with folks one-on-one, and I also certify business owners or coaches, service providers, healers, helpers, whatever, in this as well. So you can learn how to do it for yourself and you can better support your clients, or if you want to support clients around time, I also do a certification once a year, which is also on my website.
Well, I will link your website and I'm sure I'll get into this with some of my one-on-one and membership clients too, because I think just one of the biggest things that keeps coming up is time, good, bad, and ugly. So I think this will be a really great conversation. This is gonna be a great episode. So I really appreciate your time. I
Thanks, Haley.
appreciate this moment. Well, thank you. And thank you for reaching out. I mean, this has been great.
Thanks for having me on.